at Sabrachi Jewelry Design, or Sabrachi. I don't even say his name right anymore because of Zach. He's a sponsor of Now We Go, and he's a sponsor of this show. He's a dual sponsor. He's a gemologist. He's a jeweler. He's specialized in CAD design, and he's also a branding specialist. You need anything at all done in those categories, Matt is the best motherfucker for that. It's D'Antonio and Klein Jewelers in Philadelphia, PA, and he's also going to be doing it soon to be in Lehigh Valley, PA. You can call or DM for appointments. He's in Philly on 726 Sanson Street, and you can follow him on social media at Sabraki Jewelry Design. He's made pendants for finishers. We're working on stuff together. It's not just jewelry. We're working on pendants and all kinds of things. He's making rings. He can do anything that you need, from design to gems to jewelers. He is the real deal, and I'm excited. He's a childhood friend who grew a diamond business. He's a jeweler. We did a podcast with him. It's a cool story. Check him out. Sabraki Jewelry Designs. Influencer, TikToker, entrepreneur, OnlyFanser. At this point, I'm just adding ERs. Show stalker, Gypsy Sister Kelly Lynn. She's sponsoring the show. And all you little boys who hit me up in my DMs, look at that, man. She's in a bikini. Go pay for it. Go pay for it. Go over to her Instagram. You want to know what Kelly's doing? Guys and girls, because girls, you can learn what she's doing. She's making a lot of money. You go over to @theGypsySister. You click on the link in her bio. After you look at all her pictures, a lot of good content. She's putting out content. She's an influencer. She's crushing TikTok. So you get into that Instagram, and then you click on it. And then you got your links. You got all your links now. You can see everything she's doing. Everything. She's doing merch. She'll pick up a shirt or a pillow. You want to sleep next to her? That's what I do. I got 6 of them in my bed. TikToker. You want to see her dance a little bit? See her dance on the railroad? Go there. She's an entrepreneur, an influencer, a TikToker. We're doing a podcast together. She's got a webpage coming. Should have asked me to do it. It'd be done. And she's a counselor. Girls, you want to learn how to do what she's doing? Go check it out. All the information is at Gypsy Sister on Instagram. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for finally taking the step towards OnlyFans. And you can go check it out, guys. Get out of my DMs and get into hers. Thank you, Kelly. Mad J's Barbecue, www.madjsbarbecue.com. They take cash, they take credit card. You can order online. Order online is the easiest for everybody. They can also call in their order. They got 2 locations. They are killing the barbecue game. Started out small. Now these guys got 2 separate locations. They're doing catering. They're doing pop-ups at Seven Sirens Brewery. What else can these guys do? The Nazareth location is over at 52 East Lawn Road. Anybody knows where Nazareth is? It's down past 7-Eleven, right next to Rita's. Shout out Calandra. They are at 52 East Lawn Road, and that's 610-365-7275, and www.madjsbarbecue.com. Justin just opened up the second location, and he is a part of Willow Creek Brewery, and that is 643 Penn Avenue, West Reading, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be having these guys on the show, and they are crushing barbecue, catering, in-store, pickup. They're doing it all, man. They're doing it all. Check them out at madjsbarbecue.com, and thank you for being a sponsor. Precision Laser. Precision Laser is a family-owned aesthetic laser practice in Easton, Pennsylvania that was founded in 2019. They offer laser hair removal, laser tattoo removal, vascular and pigmented lesion removal, acne treatment, and more. Their team of licensed experts use cutting-edge technology and safe laser protocols to deliver you the best skin results throughout Easton, New Jersey, and the greater Lehigh Valley. They provide free consultations and affordable pricing to make laser treatments accessible to you all. To learn more about their services or book an appointment, please go to precisionlaserspecialist.com or call 484-306-0089. They are located at 42 South 3rd Street in Easton, PA, 18042. What are they running this summer? Hair removal. I'd like to get this whole thing removed because what do I want? A summer beach bod. They are running for $165 per session. You pick 2. Armpits, bikini Brazilian, upper legs, lower legs. This is what we're doing with them. I'm excited to have them, and I'm excited for them to be working with us. They're on the podcast. You can check out everything they're doing on the website, and thank you for being a sponsor. Look good this summer. Look good. Radio episode somewhere in the... You know what? It's 70. Big 70. Welcome to Never Again Radio, my friend.
My pleasure.
I met you through the school, I believe, and then I'm a big MMA fan, so I heard the name, and then Zach and JM always talked about you, and we've been wanting to do this interview for a while, so I'm excited to finally get to do it. How the hell did you get into mixed martial arts?
Well, I mean, I think I started with wrestling, I'm from Bethlehem, so it's a huge wrestling area, obviously. One of the best in the country for like youth and high school level, if not the best. It's really high up there. So, I was just wrestling through my career. I was always into martial arts, Van Damme movies, Bruce Lee movies and stuff.
They were good back in the day.
Yeah. So, and then the UFC started in early 90s, and, I used to go to Blockbuster and rent the VHS.
Yes, they were in like the adult section sometimes.
And I'd be like watching these new moves that I've never seen before.
Who were your guys? Who were your the ones that you were like, fuck yeah?
So I had heard about the results, like I wasn't watching it live and like rooting, but like obviously Hoist.
Yeah.
I mean the smallest guy, right?
Yeah.
So if the smallest, pretty much least athletic guy is beating all the other ones pretty handily, then I was like, he knows some stuff that I should probably know. But I got into it, and then Pride came along. I was watching Pride. Kazushi Sakuraba is probably like the first MMA fighter that really stole my heart.
How did you find the Pride stuff? Was that able to be rented as well? Because because UFC originally was crazy, like this no holds barred death match stuff. Yeah. The documentary is pretty cool, and then Pride was always like a crazier foreign version of that. How did you end up seeing that?
Yeah, I think the UFC first started in 93 and Pride was 97.
Yeah.
So I was like, I forget I would go to like a mall, and wherever there's like a store that sells like
that's
VHSs.
right. What was that called?
Yeah, I forget what
fuck, it was Sun something. Fuck.
It was Sun something.
What the fuck was it? But yeah, I totally forgot.
So
like there was a time where you would get these like weird DVDs that were in the back, and
this was I would buy the VHS.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's so crazy
like
how instant everything is.
The sports section, and they would have
look it up.
They would have the Pride Grand Prix, which was like a huge tournament. So I would buy these videos, and Hoist was in the tournament, so I knew him, and started watching Pride as well. But so then I'm wrestling in college, and we have a guy on our team at Drexel, and he's a heavyweight, and he really isn't there to wrestle. We only had one heavyweight on the team, and he didn't really have another guy who was of a similar size to practice with, so they allowed this guy, he was a Drexel student, to come train with the wrestling team, Mike Parzik. And he was really just trying to learn wrestling to get into fighting. This is before it was called MMA. It was just called NHB, no holds barred. So I would talk to him because we were both into it. And then in the off season, he took me down to the local gym in Philly, which was called Body Arts Gym. But there was
How old were you at the time?
19.
That's crazy.
So there was an NHB team called Philadelphia Fight Factory. So like wrestling season is like, October to March. And after that would end, like starting like in April, I would start going to the martial arts gym and doing like, 2 or 3 times a week, basically doing no-gi jiu-jitsu without that. Like the guy wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy, he was a sambo guy, Steve Hegg, who's the original guy that created Fight Factory. And I would just train with them. I'd do some jiu-jitsu tournaments. I'd still be training for wrestling in the off-season. Then I go back to wrestling for 6 months in the season, or five or 6 months, whatever the season was. And then just when I was in the off-season, I would just be training a little bit here and there with jiu-jitsu. And then when I graduated, my wrestling career was over. I knew, I was okay, but I wasn't like anywhere close to being like an Olympic caliber wrestler that would compete internationally. So I started training more consistently at the martial arts gym. And I think like 6 months after I graduated, they were like, "You want to do an MMA fight?" I was like, "Yeah." And then
were you nervous? Yeah, of course. Well, you were competing at that point in the jiu-jitsu tournaments, but they're not how they are now. Was it smaller stuff, or were they still big tournaments back then?
It was definitely smaller than it is now. It was like, but the events are still around. It was like Naga and Grappler's Quest.
Yeah,
they still exist.
Yeah.
So I was doing mostly that.
What was the deciding factor that you wanted to get in there and do that. And I mean, at that point, were you looking at doing it for a living, or like, did you see a career out of it, or you were like, fuck it, I'll fight someone just to see how it is?
Yeah, absolutely not. Because even like there was no weight class, there was no smaller weight classes like on the bigger stage. Like,
yeah, I keep thinking that it's how it is now, and it was probably
not even close. Yeah, so the UFC, the lightest weight class was 155, and I don't even know if the WC was like popular yet. It was probably just getting
oh shit, I forgot because they swallowed that up.
Yeah. So no, I just knew I liked competing, and I wasn't going to be able to compete in wrestling anymore.
Where did you get the drive to compete from? Family, your parents, or like, you know, what was it? You just got involved in wrestling and kind of drove you to just be obsessed with competing. But I mean, you have to enjoy it. It has to come from somewhere. But I mean, for you to want to get in to a cage with another person, that's competing at a super high level.
Well, I don't think I'm obsessed with competing or anything. I mean, I like it. It's very challenging, like mentally and physically. So I think that's the appeal. It's not like I just want to go beat people up.
No, I was looking at it from like, you know, when you wrestle and, you know, competing like that, like there's just a, you know, do you have a constant urge to compete more?
No, I think I was just unfulfilled with my wrestling career. Like in college, my main goal was to qualify for the NCAA Division I National Championship tournament, and I was one match away my junior and senior year. So I was like, I had a real bitter taste in my mouth after, and I had two really tough draws, but I'd beaten the one guy earlier in the season, and then I lost to him in the match to qualify me for the event. That happened 2 years in a row, my junior and senior year. So I think that left like a bitter taste in my mouth, and I definitely didn't want to stop competing at that point, you know. So I was also into martial arts. I thought fighting was it's very different than wrestling. So it was just a new form of competition that was much freer. I could do a lot more things than just in wrestling. So I was interested to try it. I certainly didn't think it was going to be a career or anything. Like I said, like there really wasn't any lighter divisions, and even the heavier divisions, they weren't making like a career out of it. So
what was it like getting in there?
First time?
Well, what was it like training for that? Because at that point, you've never experienced anything like that before, have you?
No. I don't know. It didn't really feel that much different from wrestling. I was obviously nervous, but I'm nervous before wrestling matches too. It's like I was never afraid to get hurt or anything, or like I care about my performance. I'm nervous because I want my performance to reflect what I believe I'm capable of.
Yeah.
And just meeting that expectation is where I think the nerves come from. So it really wasn't much different than how I feel before a wrestling or jiu-jitsu match. The only other difference is that you fight much more sparsely than you can compete in. Like wrestling, you have matches every week. You have a whole season where you wrestle 30, 40 times. Jiu-jitsu, you can do a bunch of matches in a day, enter tournaments every couple weeks or whatever. And, you know, if you don't do well, the next tournament's right around the corner. You pick right back up. Fighting is like, you know, you fight 2 or 3 times a year. You do a big preparation for one single event. So there is a little more emphasis on like what the result of a specific fight than, you know, you have a whole season for wrestling, and you can get hundreds of jiu-jitsu matches in a year where it's like 2 or 3 for fighting. So each one is weighted a little bit more, you know.
How was that first experience for you?
It was good. I was definitely nervous, but again, like I said, it wasn't like I'm going to get hurt or anything. It was a little bit of like, I don't know exactly what to expect. But it went well. Like I just got in the groove right away. Faced the jiu-jitsu brown belt in my first fight. One of the only guys so I didn't do any amateur fights. I went right to professional fighting. But it was a different time.
Yeah.
So amateur fighting was just getting started. The guy I fought was one of the only people I had heard of that had amateur fights. And it wasn't like I think I'm like so good I'm going to go pro right away. It was the rule set. So like the girl we cornered this weekend, so they have different rules. You have to wear like shin guards and bigger gloves. There's like no knees to the head, no head kicks. When you take people down, you can't punch the head on the ground. You can punch the body, but not the head. So there's no ground and pound to the head. That was the main thing. So I'm a Division I wrestler whose main game is to take people down and beat them up. Like I did jiu-jitsu for a few years, like on and off, but I wasn't a submission artist. This guy's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so my whole game is take people down and punch them. And if I wasn't going to be allowed to do that in amateur, I'm like, it's not even worth it. So that's why I went right to pro. It was also just, I would have to fight amateur now. The guys are so much better. They have so much more experience by the time they're turning pro, that just turning pro straight from wrestling would not really be an option. But it was a different time. This is December 2006. So
yeah. When did you decide to pick up your second one? Because I mean, you obviously went well, and then you're like, all right, let's do another one.
It was like 3 to 4 months later, I got another one. Yeah, I don't know. They're just like, oh, you won. You're like, we got another event coming up in, I think I fought in December, and they're like, we got an event at the end of March. You want to fight on that one? So yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then it just slowly started picking up from there.
Yeah. So I won that second fight. And then that show put me in a title fight. This is a regional show that was called Combat in the Cage. It doesn't exist anymore. And in my second fight, I fought a really good black belt, and I had a really tough fight with him. Won a split decision. Third fight, I fought a black belt jiu-jitsu world champion who only had one MMA fight, but he was 1-0. But I beat him, and everyone started to think I was a striker, which is very funny. Because I'm absolutely not, but especially at this point. But because I was fighting these like guys who were way more experienced in jiu-jitsu than I was, but I was a much better wrestler, they couldn't take me down. And I think I was just like athletic enough to make it look like I was better at striking.
Yeah.
I could just like move in and out of range and like throw punches, and I was just a better athlete than they were, at that point. So I won that title. Then I got a chance to fight on Elite XC, which was a pretty big. That was the first time I was ever on a big show. They were on like Showtime and stuff.
Did your nerves change with a bigger show, or is it just kind of same old? Yeah,
the stage never really meant that much. Not that it didn't mean much. It just never affected. That's not what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
I don't care how many people are watching. It's like I said before. It's meeting my own expectations of what I'm capable of. Like, whatever I think of these people who are watching, like I can't perform better than I'm capable of, That's just impossible. So it's just meeting what I think I should be able to do in there, which I never really do. You never get there, but you perform better at times than others, and it's just making sure I'm in a position to fight well. Even the result isn't totally in my control. I just want to fight well and do the things I've been planning and training to do. And as long as I can do that, I'll be fine with whatever happens.
I've never heard this perspective from interviewing anybody with fighting or anything, or I watch a lot of the UFC, and a lot of it's all media driven now, but you kind of lose sight sometimes of that there are people who just have like a perspective of hitting a performance that they want to hit. It's cool hearing this, because I never really talk to anyone, or no one really opens up as far as like this is their way they look at it. But it's making a lot more sense on like how you carry yourself, and you're calm and collected, and it's a unique thing for me to be able to hear so far. So now you have this main stage fight in what is it, Elite
XC?
Yeah. So how did that go?
So that was my first loss. So I fought another guy another local. He was fighting out of Philadelphia. I was fighting out of Philadelphia at the time, and but he was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu world champion. I think he was also undefeated. It was Wilson Hayes, who ended up fighting Demetrius Johnson for the title in the UFC, and was a top flyweight in the UFC for a long time. Fought in Bellator, fought all over the world. So I lost to him. I got choked unconscious in an arm triangle. And yeah, that was the first one that was like televised too, but, at that point I was not super equipped to handle losing well. Like, that was my first loss in MMA, and wrestling. I have some issues with especially like the American wrestling, like mental approach, where it's like, when I was wrestling I think it is different now. When I was wrestling in high school, it was like, if you lost a match, it wasn't like, let's figure out where they scored on you and why and what you could have done better in this spot. It was like, no, you just didn't train hard enough. You need to do more work and do it harder. And I was like, yes, of course, that's right. And without like really any thought behind it. It was always just more and harder. And you know, like a lot of wrestling coaches would kind of put the perspective that like losing is almost shameful. It's like, you know, we do absolutely everything we can to win no matter what. And I think at this point I still kind of had that, a bit of that. I didn't handle losing well. But I got another fight in Elite XC and I did better the next time.
Well, how did the losing go? What did you go through with that? Was it like, you know, did you take time off? Did you get depressed? Did you have to build yourself back up? Like, what did you do to get yourself back on track?
No, so I think I had the mentality that it was like everything, I just am not working hard enough. I need to do more. And so like the relationship I was in at the time, I think I just like went up to my girlfriend who I'd been with for a few years at this point, and I'm like, hey, you now have to take a back seat to fighting. Like, I'm going to put everything in this. I hope you're all right with that. But like, I have to put fighting first. And she was not all right with that.
No.
I tried to be upfront and be like, listen,
I tried
really,
that too
I really
with
want
this stuff. It doesn't work.
I mean, we were still together for a while, but she was not.
And then that's got to be difficult because how you trained for that fight was probably at a high level to begin with. So then for you to wrap your head around having to double that, it's got to get overwhelming, or, you know, it's interesting to hear how you say you didn't know how to handle it, because you explaining it is like kind of like, you know, I'm in my 40s. So like I kind of look at mistakes and things back then. So, I mean, to put yourself in that position to carry more weight into something that you have to carry a lot of to get into anyways, it's got to be tough.
Yeah. So, that fight was in January. I think it was actually on her birthday.
Oh my God.
And we went for Christmas. We did like a big trip in Vegas. So like that was like less than a month before the fight in January. I went on like a vacation with her to Vegas where we partied for a week. I didn't do any training, and I think I kind of blamed her a bit for that without really like. See, now I have such a different perspective now. Like, if I would go away for a few days, less than a month before the fight, I feel like it wouldn't affect me at all. And like, I try to impart this on the guys I'm helping teach now. It's like, you know, if I miss a day of sparring, or you know, I miss a session here or there, the impact that is going to have on my fight, even if it's a couple days, the impact that's going to have on my fight is basically zero. What matters is, like, I've been wrestling since I was 6. I've been training for stuff for 20 years. What is one day? Literally nothing. It's you take a big picture view, you know. These like, oh, I didn't have a good practice today, or I was tired and I skipped practice and I'm lazy. Look, sometimes resting is going to be better. And even if it wasn't, one day the impact is almost completely zero. You know, you can't make it a habit, but I didn't handle it that well. I blamed her for, not, it wasn't her fault. I took her on the trip, but it was like, I blamed all these things that like, oh, I gotta like, everything has to be about this. And I just wasn't where I am now, or where I think you should be for that. So, you know, a lot of areas of my life suffered because I wasn't capable. Like I neglected a lot of other things. I didn't have a good balance in my life, and the relationship was part of that. Other friends, other enjoying life in other ways was just, I kind of just like went full into fighting, and I slowly got a better perspective.
Yeah.
Over time.
It's hard to do that, though. It's hard to, you know, I try and tell everybody, like, you learn from mistakes, but what people don't realize is that lesson that you learn isn't the easiest thing to do. And sometimes you have to fuck up, you know, 3 times in a row. And then you're like, oh, like, even you giving that perspective, like, you know, for anyone who would be working with you to have that kind of knowledge to pass down would be huge.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't think anybody ever looks at, like, the actual lesson that you have to go through. And that isn't something like, okay, that time it did it. Like, it's a long draw. Like, you know, it's those moments where you look back on shit and you're like, man, like, maybe that was my fault that I fucking ruined that relationship. Or like, you know, you start taking not the blame, but you start looking at a different perspective of where, like, man, and I do that a lot, where I look, this has been a long road, and it hasn't been not fucked up probably in the last 3 years, because I've just fucked up so much that, like, things are working. But then, I do reflect on situations a lot, and I always look at, like, what I could learn and how I can grow and how you do that. And I feel like that's how you get better at stuff, and that's how you pass knowledge down to people, is by giving them, the result of, like, hey man, like, this is how you handle this, and this is not fun to go through. And most of the time people will take a version of that advice, but I think people have to go through that shit in order to become a different person.
Yeah, for sure. But, like, if one of the people out of, like, the 100 people I try to impart this lesson on, if one person can take it and not have to go through it to learn the lesson, then that's great. But yeah, most people, like, they listen to me, but they're gonna do what they're gonna do, And, like, people are always talking to me about, like, if I knew this back then, I, like, as they reflect and like, regret handling it one way or another. Like, I definitely handled that situation poorly, but I don't regret how I handled it, because I couldn't have handled it different. I wasn't that person. Like, having regret for not doing something different is saying, if I was someone different back there, then I would have done something different. Yeah. Of course.
And as stupid as it sounds,
if you knew what you do, it wouldn't be the same. Like, and you're a different person.
Stupid as it sounds, with the cliche of, like, everything happens for a reason. It's like, I just had a conversation with my friends who were like, this is what I should have done. And I'm like, yeah, but if you would have done that, like, you didn't like doing this, and you wouldn't even have been able to do that. And if you forced yourself to do something you don't like that long, like, you would have been a miserable person, and you wouldn't be who you are now. And, like, the reasons why you have all these awesome qualities is because you overcame these hard obstacles, and that's why you're this person. If you would have taken shortcuts or not been on those roads, you wouldn't be the person who you are now. Like, everything that I've done with, like, quitting drinking for 10 years is, like, I owe all of that to getting my shit together, starting a business, creating this clothing company. Like, if I wouldn't have decided to do that in that moment, none of this would exist. And if I would look back on it and be like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have done that, like, there wouldn't be a never again. It's like, there's these roads that I feel like sometimes define you as people. And then when people look back at, roads they've been on, it's like, well, that's why you're this person, because of that road. If you would have changed that road, you wouldn't, who knows if we would even be friends.
Yeah.
It's weird to go deep down into that stuff.
Yeah. I don't like this saying, everything happens for a reason, because I don't agree with it. But there's no doubt that all of your experience shape you. I mean, that is literally who you're not. You're not anything besides your genetics and all of your experience.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, your experience shape you, and you change as you experience more and learn new things. And,
So what was it like getting into that fight then, after, everything that you just explained, with kind of trying to get back on the horse, getting into that next fight, changing how you're doing stuff now? And, do you feel like you did make adjustments to have a better fight that you had next?
I worked harder and was really committed to my training, and I fought well, and I fought another good guy, another undefeated black belt with, I think he was like 5-0 with 5 first-round submissions or something. And I fought him in Elite XC it was a bigger event. It was like Kimbo Slice was the main. It was the first ever event that was on, like, regular TV. It was on NBC, so they switched and did, like, it was like Elite XC prime time.
Was Kimbo the main event?
Kimbo was the main event against English guy James Thompson, I think. His, like, ear exploded on TV.
Yes, I remember this, and I do remember that being a thing that was not normal, that this was on TV.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Gina, it, like, hung down.
yeah. Gina Carano was on the card.
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler was on the card. I was on the undercard. And I fought and I won, but it was like a really big. It was the biggest arena I'd fought in. It was, where was that? The Prudential Center, I think, in Newark. I have a really funny story about the stare down for Kimbo and James Thompson. So this is the funniest stare down I've ever seen. So they did the like weigh-ins and face off outside. This is like late May in Jersey, in Newark, and they had like this, like, black steel platform that you walk up onto to weigh in. So, and it's right in the sun. So this black steel thing is getting really hot. And they know it. So they have these little carpet squares that you can stand on for the face off and stuff. And James Thompson was like a debt collector. He's like this huge, muscly dude with like really intense.
It looked like something out of a Guy Ritchie movie.
Like he like shakes when he stares at you and stuff.
Yeah.
So like they weigh in and then they have this stare down, and the squares are like a little bit, they're like a foot or two apart, and James Thompson wants to be in Kimbo's face. He wants to intimidate him right here at weigh-ins in front of everyone. So he steps off the carpet and gets right in Kimbo's face, like nose to nose, staring him down. And then like he's there for like a couple seconds, and you see him like his feet shuffle, and his feet are burning. He has to hop back onto the carpet.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you were trying to be so tough there, and it totally backfired.
You can't get off that block. I remember trying to go get the mail as a kid. Then I'd be like, no. You can't withstand that shit,
It was just so
dude.
funny because he was trying to be so tough, and it totally backfired.
Did everyone start laughing? Or what?
I was laughing.
Yeah,
I thought it was hilarious.
That's cool that you got to. Did you get to meet Kimbo?
No, I didn't really get to talk to Kimbo.
Yeah. That's got to be wild, though, like looking at where all those people's paths went, and then, like, you were on the same cards as them. And it's weird probably sometimes looking at different people you run into and their just lives go out and do crazy shit.
I was talking to Gina Carano's father, who was a football player. I think he was a quarterback for Dallas.
That's so bizarre.
And we were like, we were arguing about football because I was an Eagles fan. And then we settled on both hating the Giants.
Yeah.
So it was all right. But yeah, I was like, tell your daughter I said, what's up? It was like 2008 or something.
Yeah. That's crazy. So where'd you go from there then?
So Elite XE eventually folded. And then, so I was training with Eddie Alvarez at the time, and he was one of the Fight Factory products, and he was easily the most successful guy we had out of the gym. He was the first guy to be like making money to go like fight full time, and but I was another one of the like pretty good up and comers at this time. I think I'm like 4-1 right now, with my only loss to Wilson, who Wilson went on to win the Elite XC title. So he beat me. He fought on that Kimbo James Thompson card too, won there, beat another guy, Brian Caraway, in Elite XC, and then fought for the title and won the title, and then they folded shortly after that. So Eddie was like a pretty popular guy. Eddie had like a pretty famous manager, Monty Cox, who was managing like Matt Hughes, Robbie Lawler, Rich Franklin, a lot of Pat Miletich, a lot of the bigger name guys, and so he kind of hooked me up with Monty Cox. And Monty was like going to try to help develop my career also. So he put me on one of like, he runs his own shows too. And he put me on a couple of his local shows that he would throw, Extreme Challenge in Jersey. And I won a couple fights. Then he got me a fight in Japan, flew to Japan, fought in Tokyo.
What was that like traveling? Was that like your first time traveling?
Yeah, I had only fought in Jersey. I was so unprepared.
That must have been so fucking surreal.
Oh man, it was so bad. I got sick on the flight over. I fought.
That's a long flight too.
So I took a fight at 1:45. I fight at 1:25 now. I took a fight at 1:45, and I don't even walk around at 1:45. And I get there. So I flew out of Philly on a Thursday morning. By the time I got into Tokyo, it was Friday evening there. Weighed in Saturday, fought Sunday, flew home Monday morning.
Oh my God. There's no way you can even
so
prepare with the jet lag.
No, I was so I didn't.
How old are you at the time?
I don't know, 25, 26.
Yeah. It's still young, man.
I didn't bring like a scale with me to check my weight. So like I weighed in a 139. I weighed in 6 pounds under. But I went to the hotel lobby to ask if they had a scale that I could weigh in on, but they don't speak English.
I was gonna say, did you enjoy that language barrier?
So I walk up there. I'm like, I don't even know how to start. How do I even start asking if they have a scale? And I think I just like,
was there even Google then?
No.
Yeah.
Like, scale?
Yeah.
Scale? And they're like, what are you talking about? So I like.
Who did you fly over with?
My coach Steve Haig, the Fight Factory owner. So I just would like write scale on a piece of paper and hand it to him because a lot of things are written in English there, and I think they looked up on the computer what scale meant, It must have said like a measuring instrument or something like that. This is what I'm guessing, because they handed me a ruler, and I was like, no, like for weight, I wrote like kilogram, and they handed me like a little food scale, and I was like, a big one, and they're like, no, we don't have it. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just guessing. I weighed in 6 pounds under. I was doing well in the fight, but I lost. That was the second fight I lost, standing rear naked choke. So, but it was a really cool experience. I always wanted to fight in Japan because I was such a big fan of Pride. And yeah, the most money I also made for a single fight at that time. So it was a good experience. I was fighting definitely heavier than I should have been, but and I was fighting well until I got caught in the submission. I handled that one much better. Came back, fought on another local show. Started to do more grappling. Did like these like FILA World Grappling Championships, which is like the style they were trying to get into the Olympics at the time. I don't know if they still, I don't know exactly where they are with that, but it was like through FILA and USA Wrestling, and it was like we had to do like a US team trials, and I like won the US team trials, and then we did like a little training camp as Team USA, and then in 2009 it was in Florida, the Grappling World Championships, which aren't really World Championships, but it's like, you know, there's Poland flies a team in, all these countries from all over fly teams in. I win that world championship, which is really cool. But Brazil's not there, and they're the primary guys who are awesome at jiu-jitsu. Next year I do the same thing. But we go to Poland, so we compete in Poland. I think I got bronze that year. And when I'm coming back from Poland, so I fly back. I get in on a Monday night. I get a call on a Wednesday if I want to fight on Friday in the main event of an M1 card in Atlantic City. And I was fighting another wrestler, another primary grappler, although I didn't do any training at all, any MMA training at all for this. I was just doing grappling for a while. But I accepted his main event. I started a little slow because I was still kind of in grappling mode, but got going, choked him unconscious in the last round. And then Eddie helped me Eddie at this time was in Bellator, became the Bellator champion. So he's talking to the president and being like, hey, we got this guy. We should put him in. If you're doing a bantamweight tournament, you should put him in the bantamweight tournament. And they're like, I don't know. You know, I had 2 losses on my record at the time. I was like 6-2 or 7-2 now, maybe. They're like, we'll give him a fight on an undercard, and if he wins, we'll put him in the tournament. And so that happened. I won that fight, and then I got put in the Bellator tournament.
Do you feel more pressure with that situation, with them putting that on you?
What, like
You got to win?
I guess. I mean, I don't want to win that fight more than I want to win other fights.
Yeah.
You want to win pretty much as possible all the time. So it's not really a different feeling, you know. You know, the potential implications are different, but that's really outside of how you should be thinking about the actual performance. You know, when you do start worrying about those things, I think it can only be negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you won?
I won that fight, and I got put in the Bellator tournament, the first ever. So they used to do these 8-man tournaments, and the winner gets the title, and then they do another tournament to determine number one contender. Number one contender then fights the current champion and do that. So I fought in the Bellator tournament, won the tournament, became the first ever Bellator bantamweight champion.
What was that like?
It was cool. It was probably like maybe the biggest or one of the biggest accomplishments of my MMA career so far. So became the Bellator champion. That was when it was like really like people started to know my name in MMA circles.
Do you feel at that point you finally let go of the wrestling shit?
Yeah. Steve Haig, the guy at Fight Factory, was a good coach. Like, he definitely had a perspective much more like mine now. You know, just like the result is the result of a fight, win or lose, your record, all that is a small sliver of the actual big picture. Like when I explain this to people now, it's like accomplishment versus attainment. Like, the result is just one piece. What I'm developing, discipline, character, all these skills and all these different martial arts, being able to compete on a high level, being able to make some money, not quite a full living yet, but you know, there's a much bigger picture. The result is just a little sliver of what actually happens, but it's what everyone always points to, you know. So I try to have not that perspective on it, and he was really good about helping me mentally too. So credit to him. But yeah, so I won the Bellator tournament. Had a couple of fights in the meantime while I'm waiting for the tournament the next tournament to go through to determine the number one contender. So these are like, I'm the champion, but my belt isn't on the line in these fights. But it's like, that was pretty stressful. I'm like, I don't want to be the champion, lose a fight, and then still be the champion.
Yeah.
Like that's
Because that's so backwards to anyone.
Yeah. So that was a little weird. But
You could know nothing about the sport and then be like, well, wait a minute, he lost, and how is he still the champion?
Yeah.
That would be stressful.
And they try to find good people so like the first guy I fought as a champion, I think was like 11-0 with 10 submissions. And I beat him pretty handily. It was a really good fight. And then the next one, I fought a guy who was like the first ever UFC veteran I fought. And he's a big guy who was a really good wrestler who fought he used to fight at welterweight. He fought Dwayne Ludwig and a bunch of these guys. And like slowly over his career dropped weight. This was his first ever fight at 135. He missed weight, so he was a little bigger. But I fought him, and that was one of my best performances. Submitted him in the first round. And yeah. And then I fought the winner of the next tournament, Eduardo Dantes, who's one of the best Bellator guys that's been around for, I don't know, a decade now. I got choked unconscious again in the same move the other guy choked me unconscious with. And lost my title in that fight. But I had gone on like a big streak. I was like 14-2 at this time, which is a really good record.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So waking up this is the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Waking up was pretty interesting. Because you're out for like a second or two, but you feel like you're coming out of like the deepest sleep. Like you feel like you should be in your bed.
It's weird. I've only been choked out once. I let Mickey Gall do it when he came on the show.
Yeah.
And it was one of the weirdest fucking experiences ever. I remember it felt like a dream. Like I remember him grabbing my neck, and then later on he said that I shouldn't have like tensed up, and because I guess he said if you tense up, it's like more of a go under. It's been a while since I remember talking to him about it, but he was like, because I was struggling to let him do it, if I would just let him do it, it would have went a little bit different. But I remember seeing everybody staring at me, and then I felt like I was out for like hours. And then like I remember being I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she was talking to me, and she wasn't there. And then I slowly started hearing people talking. And then I came out of it, and the first person I saw was at the time co-host of the show, Chris, was like, "You did it, buddy. You did it." And I was like, "What?" And then everybody was just standing around me. But I felt like I got like rested sleep. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, I think your whole body really relaxes.
And then the next day, I texted Mickey, and I was like, "That's so bizarre." And then like I was obsessed with thinking about it happening, and then like there was like a little bit of like I don't know if it's what you would call it, but like I wanted to almost experience it again. It was weird. It was the first time anyone's ever done that. I mean, we used to do that stupid shit where you like make yourself pass out in the school bathroom, but to be put out like that, it's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Let alone, I mean, there was a bunch of people around me, let alone a fucking audience. How weird is that?
My experience like was very, very similar. So it's like you feel like I wake up and I feel like I should be in my bed.
Yeah.
You don't really know what's going on in the beginning, and the sound kind of like in the movies like slowly comes back. So at the Boardwalk Hall, there's like this on the ceiling. There's this huge mural. So I got choked unconscious in the Bellator title fight. I was main event on TV. I think it was on MTV2 at the time.
MTV2.
Yeah, Bellator fights on MTV2 for some strange reason. I don't know why. So I'm like, so I just open my eyes and I'm looking at this mural and I'm like, I've seen this mural before. I know I've seen this before. Where have I seen this? I don't even know where I am.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at this mural, and then the ref like pops his head over, like, and he's like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, and then I knew what happened. I was like,
yeah,
oh, shit. And then the sound like slowly comes back.
It's super
and you hear
fucking
the
weird.
The crowd's like all yelling, but like, it's at the beginning. There's nothing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it made me start I don't know. It made me start thinking about like being conscious and like things like that. It fucked me up. Not from. I mean, I didn't lose anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just. It fucked me up. Like thinking about the actual being obsessed a little bit with the actual moments of coming back, which were seconds but felt so long. It was super fucking trippy. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. Don't do it on TV.
It's got to be fucking weird. So you where do you go from there?
So, I did really good in Bellator. Was the champ. Just lost my title. So I'm basically expecting to be in the next season. They did like, because it was on TV, they were doing like, it was like a 12-week season. So they would have a show every week for 12 weeks, and they were off. Then they were off for like months, and then the next season of Bellator would come on, and they would do a show every week. And you could do the tournament over that block. So you fight pretty quickly if you're in the tournament. So I was expecting the next season to be in the next tournament. If I win that, I get a shot at my old title back. So, but so they don't do every weight class every season. So I think they were going to take a break from bantamweights. But now at this point, I had quit my other jobs and was just fighting full time. So I lost my title. So like in pay structure at MMA is show money and win bonus, and it's 50-50 split. So it's like literally half your money, and it's not a lot of money. Almost anywhere it's not a lot of money, even now, but especially at this time. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get by. I think it was like 15 grand. I'm not going to get by on 15 grand this year. And some other, like a little bit of sponsor help, but like I need another fight this year, And they're like, oh, we don't really have anything. And I'm like, I know you're coming to Atlantic City in December. Like, just put me on the card there. And they're like, oh, our budget's tight. And like, we can't really give you what your contract says, but if you want to take a fight, we'll offer you this much, which is less than what my contract says. You don't have to take it, but if you want to fight, this is what we can offer you. And I'm like, I have to take it. I have to take it or go get a different job, another job. So I took it, fought another really tough guy, lost a split decision. That was very close. And that guy ended up going on to, I don't know if he won the tournament, but he ended up fighting for the title shortly after. He was really good. And then they cut me after that, so I didn't get another shot in the tournament in Bellator.
What a fucking brutal fucking way to be handled.
Yeah, it's like that. I mean, they're ruthless business people, and if you think you have like a good relationship with them, and like
you don't.
Yeah, no. But I did, because I got along with them, but I was doing well, and like they were treating me really well, and I had a really good experience with Bellator until the very end. Yeah, so, but that gave me an opportunity, because this is 2012 now. So I won the title in 2010, lost it in 2012, and now flyweights is an available weight class, 125. So I was fighting at 135 and above my whole career up to this point. There were no 125s. Even in the WEC, it didn't exist. The UFC bought the WEC, which was like probably the premier organization for the lower weight classes. So the UFC kind of brought them into the fold.
That was a big time too when they swallowed them up. That was the Showtime kick and all that stuff.
Yep.
Like that was a big deal. They were coming over because Cerrone was over there, correct? Like they picked up like a lot of really fucking, like a lot of superstars then that ended up going through that whole era of like, before Conor and all that shit.
Yeah, WC was
it was fucking sick. I loved watching WC.
It
was the first time I started paying attention to something outside of the UFC.
Yeah, WC was so good. I loved all their events because I like the smaller guys.
No, that was but that is the first time that was introduced, because you're used to the Brock Lesnar and the big guys, and then what I started, because at that point I just started becoming a fan where you're watching it so much where you slowly learn, and I'm like, yo, these motherfuckers do not get tired. Like that's then you even like now it's like I get pumped for the stuff because they can go 5, and you know what I mean. Like it changed my view on like stamina, speed, and then I started looking at each fighter's abilities a lot different, and I started really becoming a fan of the lighter weight fighters.
Yeah, I'm anti heavyweight.
Are you?
Yes, of course. The flyweights and heavyweights, we are in an
Well, even watching
eternal
it,
battle.
right? You know, even with like the one coming up with Lewis and what's his face. I mean, you know, let's hope it's over in one, because it could easily be two people leaning on each other. You know, those fights sometimes in the heavyweights, if you don't get what you want in the first round, you kind of know what's going to be 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I won't get into all my critiques on heavyweights.
You don't have to.
But yeah, so UFC absorbed the WEC, and then they added flyweights. So now flyweight is like a viable division in the biggest organization in the world. So I was at bantamweight, so I dropped to flyweight. I fought in a local show, CFFC. Won that fight. Was supposed to fight for the title against another like long time flyweight champion around here. He's still fighting. I just saw him this past weekend, Sean Santella. He was like, I don't know. I feel like he was the flyweight champion. I mean, he lost his title a couple times, but always got it back for like, it had to be like 8 years. He was the champion, basically. And I was supposed to fight him, but then he got injured. So CFFC didn't want to pay me to fight someone who wasn't the champion. So they released me. I went and fought in RFA, which was like another big like national show, but not on like the level of like Bellator or UFC or anything, or World Series of Fighting. But I fought for the title there, won the title, and then got signed to a short notice fight in the UFC 3 weeks after that fight. So yeah, that was like once I was out from Bellator and 125 was viable, I was like, that's obviously where I'm gonna go. Like, I didn't have to cut. I had to barely cut any weight to make 135. Yeah. You know? And the guys kept getting bigger. Like the last 3 fights I had at 135, I'm probably walking around at this point, I'm walking around like 145, and I'm fighting at 135. The last 3 guys I fought at 135 walk around, and they've all told me this in person. They walk around between 165 and 170. So I'm fighting guys who are like way bigger than me at this point. So I was like, people are getting better at cutting weight. More wrestlers are in who've been cutting weight their whole lives. So, and I was already at the lightest. I couldn't go anymore. There was no lighter men's class at that point. But now it just opened. So now I'm making the like Bellator still doesn't have a flyweight division for men. So so it wasn't an option. But so now I'm flyweight. I got into UFC after Bellator, had 2 fights, won both of them, including a title in a pretty decent show, and then got signed to the UFC.
What was that like?
It was a relief because of my how I felt about college wrestling. Like my goal was to make it, to compete with the best guys in the Division I National Wrestling Tournament, and I was 1 match away from just getting to go to the tournament to compete in the biggest tournament in the world. And I was kind of like, I'm never gonna get to the UFC. I was a little worried about that. I felt like it was the thing was gonna repeat, and I was like,
well, it's got to be fucked up too, because you know, you mentioned at least 8 organizations that's closed down.
Yeah.
So I mean, you kind of would just, all right, they're done. What's the new one coming up? It's got to be a very unstable atmosphere to even be trying to navigate through.
Yeah, that's another problem. We could talk about why MMA isn't profitable like across the board, like globally. Like basically, I think 2019, as far as I know, this is a little bit off topic. 2019 is the first year Bellator ever made a profit, and I think it was just because their deal with DAZN. I think that deal is what made the money. I don't know what the Showtime deal is, so I don't know if they're still going to be making.
Yeah, I forgot they went to Showtime.
Yeah, so, and like Affliction, Pride, WEC, Strikeforce, Elite XC.
I forgot about Strikeforce.
All these shows went under, like even like one championship's a huge event in Asia, but from what I know, they are losing huge. They have big investment, but they're losing massive amounts of money. I think all the international shows I can think of, I imagine Ryzen's losing money unless they have a good TV deal. I currently fight for Brave Combat Federation in the Middle East. They're a newer show, but they're definitely not making a profit. So it's like, why is the UFC is making 99% of all the money that's made in MMA? And I mean, there's an antitrust suit against them now. And I mean, I think they are a monopoly for the most part. So neither here or there. But I think if we could make MMA profitable globally, if more organizations could be profitable, it would be much better for the fighters overall. But yeah, so the UFC is the only option. So making it to the UFC was like number one goal at this point. My first goal was to become a full-time professional fighter, be able to live a life being a fighter, just training and being a professional athlete. Number two was make it to the UFC. So I got to the UFC, and it was relief because of that situation in college. I never made it to even just compete at the level I wanted to in wrestling, and I finally got this opportunity in the UFC. So I was like,
Was that like weight lifted off your shoulders?
Yeah,
what was that?
That was one of
Did
the
you kind
fights.
of have like a moment by yourself in a car and be like, "The fuck, man! Like that was a long fucked up road. I can give myself credit now." Or
I have a picture of. So when I got to the venue the day of the fight, my first fight in the UFC, when I just like got in the cage and just like lied down, and I was just like, it looks just like I'm like just happy and like content, like I made it. I'm here now. So I was just super grateful for that opportunity. I took the fight on 10 days notice, so I didn't really get like a training camp because I was replacing someone who was injured, and but I knew no matter how this fight went, they were going to give me at least another shot.
because you're helping them out.
It was like
Yeah.
that was one of the least stressful fights I've ever had in my UFC debut. I was just like, it's a win-win. You know, there's no matter what happens in this fight, like. And I was fighting Scott Jorgensen, who had fought for the I watched him in the WC for years and years. He was an awesome
he was
fighter.
another one coming
He was a
up.
better wrestler than me in college. I watched him wrestle in college for Boise State. I fought for I think he fought for did he fight for the WC title or the UFC title? I'm not sure if it was after it was absorbed. He fought Dominic Cruz for the title. I think it was in the UFC, but I'm not. It could have been WC before they absorbed him. But anyway, so he was like one of the top guys. He was ranked number 7 in the world at the time I fought him. And I fought a great fight and beat him pretty clearly, 3 rounds to nothing. And I was pretty happy with that one. That was probably another one, like top.
That was televised, correct?
Yeah, that was probably Fox Sports 1.
Yeah, I probably watched that fight because that name, like he was known back then. Like he was climbing up.
Yeah.
It wasn't like now where everything's moved around and picked and whatnot. Like it was more, there was a ladder, you know, because there wasn't as many guys. So you had like Cerrone and all these different guys, Diaz, you know, and it was like they fought way more than they do now. But that dude definitely, probably 90% sure I watched that fight, which is crazy to then be interviewing you. I wasn't doing any of this shit back then. Just watching fights. Yeah, because that was Fox Sports 1. It's even crazy to look back on like how mixed martial arts and everything even came to, you know, it was what was the one channel it was on before Fox? It was Spike TV was doing shit. And then like when you said MTV2, I forgot, like when you were an MMA fan back in the day, like it wasn't easy to watch the fights. I remember having to go to the scorecard for every fucking pay-per-view, and then you just had to put up with drunk people that were just there to like go dancing downstairs, and like it wasn't accessible to watch fights. And then even to get this many fights that they put out is like, you know, I remember you have to wait for the pay-per-views.
WC was on like Versus, the Versus channel.
Yeah.
And there was like Axis TV,
Yep.
which had like some like less popular MMA.
Yeah, and then
content.
like Spike TV would get bought out like 10 different times. They'd just keep changing the name, and they'd be like, oh yeah, now it's like Paramount
Yes,
this.
yeah.
And like,
right.
So what was that like getting there, being your relief, letting go of the like the accomplishments of the wrestling that you held that over your head for so long, you let that go, and then you get this win over an extremely credible person on 10 days notice. It has to be one of the bigger moments in your life, correct?
Yes, definitely. I was pretty ecstatic.
Yeah. Yes, you should be.
Yeah. It's just kind of. I always believed like my skill level was amongst the best guys in the world around my weight. I still believe that now. It was just awesome to be at that stage that I didn't get to reach in wrestling. The biggest organization in the world, get a big win like that. It was awesome. And then I fought again, like 7 or 8 weeks later for them I was on the undercard of a Ronda Rousey pay-per-view. So that was cool too, and I won that fight too, and then got in the rankings.
What's it like
after
being
that
on a pay-per-view like that? Like she was fucking, that was a different time back then.
Yeah. it was a big card. It was cool. She was fighting a girl I'm really good friends with, Sarah McMahon, who is Olympic silver medalist in wrestling, and long term. I think I'm actually probably cornering Sarah at the end of August. That's the girl I'm going out to. We were talking about before. I'm going out to help her and then corner her in Vegas at the end of the month here in the UFC. So, yeah, she fought Ronda on that card. So it was like, I did like Ronda as a fighter, but obviously I was rooting against her in that one. Sarah's my girl. So, but it was really cool. It was a big event because Ronda was so popular, and it was cool. And I won. I had a good fight, so it was going well. And then so I got ranked in the top 10 after that. So now I'm top 10 in the world flyweight.
What's that fucking
2-0 in the
feeling
UFC.
like, man?
I mean, it's not like I believe that's where I should be. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, good. But it's nice to be like climbing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like,
especially with what.
and like you see people talking like Zach could be like a really like a tough fight for Demetrius Johnson. Like he's one of the guys who's gonna come up and has an interesting style because I was a better wrestler. I think Demetrius eventually lost to Cejudo, who out wrestled him and has like and I mean Cejudo's a great wrestler, but I think my wrestling is better in MMA than his. He would obviously kill me in a straight wrestling match, Olympic gold medalist, but wrestling is different in MMA than it is in wrestling. And I think it's easily what I'm best at is like how to close the gap, how to time things in MMA. I do think I'm like actually one of the best in the world at that. But that's probably the only area that I would consider myself at that level. I'm good at everything, but that's the level that's the area where I'm like very, very good. So then I get a fight with the I think he was ranked number 4 in the world at the time, Jussier Formiga. He was formerly ranked number 1 in the world before the UFC adapted the division, the flyweight division. And I had a really tough fight with him, very close, but I lost a close decision, made a couple mistakes in the fight, basically gave him his best position in the second round, and that cost me the fight, in my opinion. It was just like an instinct I had from wrestling. Like as I'm attempting this headlock, I'm like, oh, this is stupid. But it was just an instinct. Like you can't think through everything there. Like it's just like a reaction from your training. Like he's pushing into me. I throw the headlock. Like, I didn't even like really consciously think about it. As I'm doing it, I'm like, this is a bad idea. But it was already happening. It was like not under my control, really.
Nope.
That's what's funny. So lost that fight, but he was a top guy. So got another fight a little bit later against a really scrappy, tough, nonstop maniac, Tim Elliott. He's like a crazy fighter, one of the craziest styles and paces of a guy I've ever fought. But I did well, beat him. So now I'm 3-1 in the UFC, still ranked top 10. They give me a number 1 contender fight against John Dodson, who had already fought for the title, who I was friends with and had trained with him multiple times. We've gone out, hung out a lot, so that was interesting, fighting someone who I'm actually like decent
Was that the first time you had to do that?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. So like I became friends with Wilson, but not till after we fought.
Yeah.
So but I actually befriended a lot of the guys I fought. Some guys I beat, some guys I lost to. Became friends with a lot of them. We trained together and hang out when we're around, and it's not like people are always like angry at their opponents or like, I don't know, treat them like in a hostile manner. But I was trying to tell them, like, if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be there fighting. Like you need them to do what you want to do.
It was one of the first things I said to you when you came down here is that you carry yourself differently than a lot of people I know. And I don't know, it was the most intriguing thing when you first came on Now We Go, where I was like, wow, this guy's perspective and how he carries himself. And then after meeting you and doing this interview so far, yes, you would become friends with all that as long as they didn't hate you. But like, you're a very personable person. You're calm. Your demeanor is very. I don't know. I like it a lot. There's not a lot of people that I meet anymore that are this calm and level-headed. And your story explains why you would have the success that you do with what you're doing. Nice. You're a very level-headed person.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of sport. Like
Yeah.
I need the opponent to be there to compete. Like if I can't be mad at them because then I'll be standing there alone doing nothing.
Yeah.
You know, they're partners that we're all helping each other. We're all there. Like obviously we're competing, but it's not an angry, aggressive thing. That's why I hate all the stupid like shit talking on social media.
Well, I see you. You put stuff out every now and then where you're like, this isn't really like why I got into this and whatnot. But then after talking to you, now I understand your perspective on the sport and how you carry yourself with it.
Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense because the average fan is into it, but like most of the fighters, even the ones that are talking shit, don't like hate each other. I mean, occasionally it'll happen, but it's all to get more people to tune in.
Yeah, because they're essentially selling tickets with emotion, so that they build it
but
up.
The fighters aren't supposed to be the promoters.
No.
Like I don't want to be an actor and play. I do the spiel. I don't want to be an actor and like play a role and have to go create a narrative about my fight. Like I want people to tune in because they like the sport and they like watching the competition. Like,
I feel like
I have to create a fake story around it to make so I can do my sport to watch.
I feel like that version of the sport is dying out. I feel like you don't see it as much. I mean, I know people are still trying to do it because of seeing the massive success of McGregor and him making that much money and all the stuff, and but now I feel like it's there a little bit, but I feel like it's slowly going away because they don't need to sell their fights that way anymore because they get paid by ESPN. So it's like they're getting paid for the pay-per-views. They still do it with like the massive fights, and even this last one, the last one with McGregor was so weird because it wasn't that at all. Then he's back to doing it, and now he just looks lost. And even following him on social media, I'm like, this guy's head is nowhere, anywhere. But then Then when I watched like last week's card, there wasn't really a lot of bullshit. There was a little bit with Uriah Hall, the Strickland, I think. He was saying a lot of off-collar stuff, but from what I understand from watching the stuff is that's how he is. But like there really wasn't a lot of hype behind that card, and I love those cards because there's no bullshit and it's just fights, and they're the best fights because the people they're like earning their way up, and you get a fucking awesome card. And then now it's like it's so backwards now because I've been watching for so long. Is like these bigger pay-per-views, there's such a buildup anymore where they make it like a fucking movie where it doesn't ever hit half the time because it's fake. And then it's like, and then your fight's lackluster because you have so much bullshit involved in it. It's weird being in love with a version of the UFC that was super popular and to go through that because it was just such at a high point because you had Rousey, then McGregor, but there's really nowhere else to go. And then when it dropped down, you're just kind of seeing like the fallout of that. I hope it gets to a better spot where the cards are just, like that last pay-per-view, it was, or not even pay-per-view, the last card I watched, I mean, that was an awesome fucking card. Nobody talked about it at all, but that's the ones I look forward to now. Yeah. The ones that no one are talking about, those are the most exciting fights. I mean, minus the main on the last one, but it was still, it is what it is. That stuff happens, but I look forward to the ones that aren't talked about. I'm not looking forward to the next pay-per-view at all.
Yeah, same. I mean, I agree. The UFC doesn't have to push that promotional angle anymore because they're gigantic ESPN deal. But the fighters who want to make more money feel like they do have to do that.
Yeah.
If they want to catch the UFC's eye, like the UFC still wants a big audience. So especially when they sell pay-per-views, that's when it like really happens, when like the view count is really going to matter. But it's sad, like other sports don't have to do this. Like NFL teams don't have to talk shit to each other before every Sunday. I mean, I get it's a team sport, so each team has a following. But if I have to build a following based off being like a fake asshole publicly, why would I want to do that?
Or when they fall into like the Cerrone vibe that Kevin Holland fell into, where like you have to keep winning, and we're gonna give you another fight. And then when he lost like 2, everyone's like, fuck this dude, he sucks, he's no good on the ground. And then now you don't hear anything about Kevin Holland, and like they're not pushing him anymore. And I'm like, man, that's gotta suck for him to wrap your head around that, and then like build yourself back up, and like because it's like they kind of give you a shot, and then they just take it away from you, and then they'll throw it over to somebody else, and it's like it's weird seeing them push the people on the lower level as well.
Kevin Holland's fighting one of my good friends who I've trained with and worked with since he was like 16 or 17. A guy out of Philly, Kyle Dawkins, who I think is 1-2 in the UFC now, but really talented middleweight, former CFFC champ. I think he has the Kevin Holland fight coming up. I don't know when it is. September, October.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, that's
that
right.
should be
They just announced it. I think like a couple days ago.
A little while ago. Yeah. Yeah. Where was I?
The UFC,
Yeah.
the Ronda card.
I think we were after that. So I was fighting Dodson, who I was friends with.
Yes,
That's
yeah. That's where we went off on the tangent. I like the tangent. So
Yeah, it was good. I fought a really good fight against a guy who's one of the best athletes in the UFC. Really, really hard, really good power puncher. Good counter striker. So it's like you can't be too reckless. Almost impossible to take down. The man's like a human spring. I've known this because I trained with him for a while. So it was a really tricky fight. I fought a really good, smart tactical fight. I thought I outstruck him, baited him to throwing first, countered him well, shut down his offense with takedown attempts, although I really couldn't get him down. Even the one time we did get on the ground, I had a good submission attack. I thought I fought really well. It was a close fight, but I thought I pulled it out. Almost every MMA journalist and commentator had it scored for me. I think there was like one that didn't. Demetrius Johnson was cage side watching because the winner's going to fight him for the title. He thought I won. I didn't get the decision. Dodson goes on to fight Demetrius for the title. And then I fight another number one contender fight after that against Joseph Benavidez, who's like,
yeah,
sure, for sure Hall of Famer, one of the best guys in the lighter division to ever do it. Had a competitive fight with him, but definitely lost that one. He outworked me, pushed the pace. I took him down a lot, but I couldn't hold him down. He's just a higher volume striker than me. I was hitting him with counters, but he just like didn't stop coming and just threw more than me and kind of was just more offensive. I think he beat me on activity. You know, that was one of the weaknesses I have is like I'm a heavily counter-oriented fighter, both in wrestling and in striking. So it's really hard to fight from behind. Something I'm working on is like being able to push the pace when I need to. And I did after my UFC career. I have had a fight where I've pushed the pace pretty successfully. So, but at that time I didn't have that ability. Lost that fight. Had one more fight in the UFC against Dustin Ortiz, another top 10 guy. I think he was ranked I think I was 9 and he was 10. And lost a close split decision. That was a really exciting back and forth fight. I just fell off his back a bunch of times. I've changed the way I approach a specific situation because of that fight. But that fight was one of the most stressful ones I had. I knew if I didn't win that fight, I was going to get released from the UFC. And that's where the other stress comes in. It's like the financial implications. Like if I get released from the UFC, am I going to find a new home where they're going to pay me enough to make a living fighting? Am I going to have to, I'm living in Montreal, training in Montreal at this point. Am I going to have to leave the country? Like my whole life could change basically based on the result of this fight. And I was very stressed about it. Like really one of the most nervous I've been about a fight, not because of the fight, because of the
your career's
potential
on the line.
Yeah, because of the potential implications.
Not even your career, your life, of just like everything that you go through, living. You know, I guess it's opposite of like when people are trying to get a new job and they're like, "Well, my life will change if I get that job," but it's like kind of like a backwards nervous energy where it's like I have to win, but if I lose, the loss is so much. You know, you can build up from the win, but to have that taken away, that's got to be fucking rough. Going into something that's your mental's got to be straight.
Yeah, I learned another really good lesson in this fight, though. Besides the technical stuff from why I think I didn't get the decision, I think it was again not mistakes I was making, but it was just a tactical error that I hadn't addressed yet because I thought I was doing the right thing. So, but I've changed my approach a little bit there. But so I was dreading like the thing that I was so stressed about losing this fight, like. I was so worried about it, so stressed about it. Didn't know if I'd be able to handle it. Didn't know what was going to happen. Kind of freaking out in my head. Like the whole training camp, like leading up to this fight, I was very stressed about this. I'm in the cage. Just fought a very close fight, waiting to hear the decision. It's a split decision, so it's very close. It goes to him. So now I'm in the moment I've been dreading for weeks and weeks and weeks, and my response is, I'm sure it'll work out. Like, I'll figure something out. Like, even if I can't fight anymore, it's like, that's fine. I'll figure something out. It's no big deal. I wasn't stressed at all. I didn't care anymore. I was like totally fine. And I'm like, man, ahead of time, if I could have thought like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? You lose this fight, what's gonna happen? Are you gonna be all right? Yeah. Then what are you freaking out about?
It's hard to get in that mind frame. I mean, it's
But
not comparable to what
now,
you're doing.
now because I know what I went through and how I felt in that moment.
Yeah.
I can like recognize it and put myself there and be like, okay, it's gonna be.
But that's the stuff that I like pointing out to people, where it's like you got to go through those experiences, so then when you're in it again, or even like the first time, like I was doing this and like I had to have the balls to like just run this, get money, figure it out, start getting sponsors, like everything I always thought about with how to make money with this. Like there was a point where I was like, dude, calm down. Like you got here. Like you got all the way here and you could leave your job and you have to handle this. Like when have you ever let yourself down and you didn't work extremely fucking hard? And that is the hardest thing to let go of, to like come into that thing where like, look, man, like, especially with you, like you busted your fucking ass to get all the way up here and you didn't have to, you just did it and you wanted to do it. But like, to believe in yourself on that level is so much harder than anything else, in my opinion, that there is, that you have to believe that like, hey man, it's going to be okay, because everything's out of your control, but you have to be okay with the fact that you're going to handle life as well as you think that you would. And then when I started having that perspective on things, my stresses really just kind of went out the window. And I mean, they're still there, but I'm like, cool, like you will make money. You've always made money. I'm not the type to go, I've never collected unemployment. You know what I mean? Like I've always worked for what I got. And I think that lesson of working, and it's like, then when you're in those moments, you're like, oh, all right, like I'll handle it. But the build up to that is never what you think it is.
I know.
It's always backwards. We're like, what am I going to do? And then when you do it, it's like, oh, I'm just going to handle the situation because I know how to handle situations.
Exactly.
Where if you didn't know how to handle situations, you would have never even got to where you're at. But those are the things that I like to explain to younger people. And I think that's like what a privilege it is to have you over at the school, like to just kind of work with people. Like it's got to be fulfilling in such a different way of life, to where now you can share these experiences that you had and these lessons you learned with people who are coming up in a way different way to get into all this than it ever was before.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very early since I've been running this MMA program here, but yeah, I mean, like, helping people on the path and showing them things to get to their dream is amazing, especially as it's going to start to be successful. So yeah, it'll be amazing.
So then, was that your stint in the UFC then?
Yep.
And then where did you go from there?
So then
Did you take time off?
I think, I mean, not really. I don't like time off from what exactly?
Just like
competition, training?
Yeah. Training, I'm guessing you constantly do, but
yeah, I basically don't ever stop training, which is why I think I've been able to, I'm pretty old now and still, in pretty good shape.
You're in fantastic shape, sir.
I have a hip issue, but like
Yeah.
I don't get like heavy between fights. I don't take time off. I'm always working on things, so I'm keeping up with the young guys who are learning at a ridiculously fast rate. So if I fall behind, it'll be over because I'm already getting older. So, but I love training, so it's no big deal. I'm happy to be there every day. Yeah, but I didn't really take off. So I had to look for a new promotional home. I didn't know what that would look like. I had a couple of shows that were bidding on me, 2 shows out of Russia, 1 out of Japan, Horizon. The one Russian show that was ACB, it's now ACA, gave me the highest offer. And the fact that they were kind of all bidding for me kind of increased my price. So I ended up making more for that show than I was in the UFC, which was pretty cool. So I fought for them in Vienna, Austria, won a fight.
That's fucking crazy.
Headlined one of their events in Montreal. I I lost that fight, but that was I think I fought a really good fight, and I thought I did the better work, but it was a close fight. I fought a hometown guy, Russian born but Montreal native. It was a close fight. Fine with it. And then I tore my ACL training I had a 3-fight contract with that Russian show, and tore my ACL. And then I was out that was when I was out for a very long time, and they released me because I was going to be injured for so long. They didn't want to keep me under contract. So that was the longest break I've had, the ACL. I didn't fight for 2 years and 3 months or something. And I really struggled to find a new place after that would pay me what I thought. I'm not going to fight for like pennies anymore. So like if I couldn't make a living fighting, then I probably wouldn't. I would have just retired. But I finally got a decent offer with, still a decent pay cut, but a decent offer with Brave Combat Federation, who I'm with now, based out of Bahrain in the Middle East. Have a good experience with them so far. Except I was in their flyweight tournament for the title. I was in the semifinal just in April. I fought April 1st in Bahrain. One of my better performances, in my opinion, in my career. Fought really well. Landed all the clean shots in the first round. Took the guy down twice. Controlled him. Second round, visibly hurt him with a body shot. Dropped him with a separate body shot.
Yeah.
Really controlled the first 2 rounds and hurt him visibly badly twice. So clearly won the first 2 rounds. I find no criteria they could give him either one of the first 2 rounds. Like, there's just no way to score either of the first rounds for him. Please, someone explain it to me. Third round, I definitely played defensive. This is the semifinals. I knew if I risked too much and lost, that's going to cost me the finals, more money, a shot at the title. So played defensive. It was close. It was still a close round, but he definitely edged the third round, but clearly won 2 rounds to 1. Judges didn't think so. Split decision for him. Although I'm still bitter because he's managed by the promotion. So this is a big problem in MMA in general as well. That doesn't exist in boxing because the Muhammad Ali Act exists, which means the promoter cannot also manage the fighter, because now you can just set up people, send your guys. Your guy makes more money. You make more money off your guy. You give them easy fights, or not easy fights, but whatever.
Yeah.
All the regional shows do this, like CFFC. I don't know about every show, but a lot of them exist. It happened to me. I didn't even think about this at the time, but when I was under Monty Cox and working, and he was putting on shows, and I'm one of his guys. He's trying to set me up with the best matchups he can to further my career, because me going further is going to help him, and so he gets to set up the fight. He doesn't just get to manage me and try to find. He's behind the fight and behind the fighter. And that's definitely a conflict of interest for any of the opponents. So that happens in Brave too. They manage and promote their fighters, which I think, is legal, but shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's not in boxing. So hopefully that'll change in the future. I try to advocate for a lot of things that I view as positive changes in MMA in general. But I fought really well outside of the decision. Brave has treated me really well. I like them generally as a promotion outside of that.
Do you have more fights coming up with them?
I have, I forget if it's 3 or 4 more on my contract, but yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know you were going to be fighting this much.
Well, I don't know. I could have 1 more fight. I could have way more. It totally depends on how I feel physically, how the fights go, what the results are, what the potential future opportunities are. So I don't know. I'm definitely going to do at least another one, but we're just going to take it one at a time.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself? Because when I talk to you, you're traveling a lot and whatnot. Do you kind of have a new path and direction that you're going with, or do you think you're kind of just going to see what happens and let things take you and, see what you can do with cornering? And, I really like, I follow you on social media, so seeing you help different people with the cornering and all that, it seems like you enjoy doing that.
Yeah, for sure. yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to, when I was done fighting, I wanted to get into coaching. I mean, like, now I've been fighting professionally for 15 years. I've dedicated really most of my life to being a combat sports athlete, for whether it was wrestling or MMA. And I've reached a very high level. I think I'm the most credentialed mixed martial artist out of this area so far. This area is a great area to recruit fighters from because of the strong wrestling base. So I always kind of planned on coming back here and coaching. And, Zach and JM have a super successful school. They just opened a giant new facility. So currently collaborating with them, which is going great, running the MMA program.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what comes out of the three of you coming together and pushing something.
Yeah, I think it could be really good. So I always knew I was going to try to, I didn't know it was going to be this area, but I always had this area in mind as a good opportunity just because my name in the area, my credentials, and the good wrestling here. I thought it would be a good area. So, I'm adjusting the dial right now from like competition mode to coach, teacher, trainer. I'm not just like, it's not a switch I'm flipping, but the dial's slowly adjusting, So, I've been living for the most part in Montreal the last 5 years, training at TriStar, which is one of the best gyms in the world. And now the border's opening next week, so I can go back, get my stuff.
Yeah, that was crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy that you had to deal with that.
I've been locked out of Canada since last September.
Yeah, all
my stuff's there.
Your car. Well, as soon as you said your car, I was like, dude, I think I got problems going on. That's got to be fucking stressful.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move out of there, and move back to this area. When I'm training for my own fights, I'll probably go up there and do at least part of my training camp up there, and I'll still make regular training trips. Hopefully I'll get to take some of the guys from here up there. Just
that'd be cool.
Like a world-class gym where like some of the most famous fighters that's ever done it have come out of, with one of the most famous coaches, and it'd just be good to spread the knowledge around and show everyone how grateful I am for everything they've contributed to my life and career. And I don't know. I know the dial's adjusting slowly, but I don't know how slowly yet. I feel like I feel pretty good. I feel like as long as I'm successful in making money, I could fight a handful more, a couple more years probably. If I'm not being successful, or I feel like a physical decline or more injuries occur, then it'll probably go sooner. It's hard to say.
I caught you at such a very, I feel like I caught you at a very interesting time in your life. I feel privileged to be able to even interview you in this time. You didn't get into a lot of stuff, and you kind of breezed over, but the amount of stuff that came out of your mouth, you've learned so many life lessons that I believe were through hard work, and you have this very, like I said, I don't meet a lot of people that are completely like, even how you're explaining coming to the end of like creating this new thing about yourself and getting into coaching, and how not to just go, all right, I'm a coach now, and then just get into that, and like you won't enjoy that, so you got to dial it back. And just the little I learned getting into my life, and I tell people now I use the dial a lot where it's like noise, and I just want to turn stuff down. And a lot of times when you turn it all the way up or you turn it all the way down, that's where you run into bullshit. And when you dial stuff in, it's a much better way of living. And I feel like you've learned that in a numerous amount of life lessons, and I feel like you have so much to offer people, and you have so much that you hand down from you in such a selfless manner. I was excited to get to know you, and I don't think we've ever would have got to talk like this because we only run into each other for 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
But it was really a pleasure to get to know you in this fashion, and learning this much about you leaving out. I know that there's a bunch more in there, but it's impressive what you've done. And then to handle yourself the way you do now, it's even more impressive of what you're handing down to others in a very selfish manner that I feel like a lot of people don't do anymore.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here sharing this experience with you, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
No, I definitely. I'm not done interviewing you. I have to stop just because we're gone over whatnot, and I don't want to keep you here all day. But I wanted to get this done so then you were introduced to my audience, because I do want to do the stuff with Now We Go and work on other projects with you. But you are welcome to come back anytime you want to promote anything, you want to talk about anything. If you're ever just like, yo, I'm fucking bored and feel like bullshitting, you can come down. The open door to anything you need with promotion wise or whatnot. You are definitely one of the good guys. I want to give you a moment to plug any of your social media, anything you got coming up, privates, anything you're doing at the gym, any way that you kind of want to have anybody get a hold of you. I want to give you the floor to do it now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you want to follow me on social media, Instagram at Zach_Makovsky, Twitter at Zach Funsize, which is my fight moniker, which is obviously a great nickname. Yeah. And so I'm still fighting for Brave Combat Federation in the Middle East. I'm not sure when I'll fight again for them. Hopefully close to the end of the year, I'm hoping. And yeah, so now teaching at Finishers MMA, running the MMA program. So they had a really good jiu-jitsu program, obviously, I mean, they created 2 legitimate world-class people from scratch, and they have a really good competition team. They have a good kickboxing program, and the kind of lane they were missing was putting it together and combining it for the people who want to fight in MMA. And that's kind of exactly the lane that I occupy. So we're all working together. It's going really well so far. So I'm running the MMA program there. They got a great new school, great new facility, amazing spot. So yeah, come by, take a class, do some privates, whatever you like. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on. If you're a first-time listener, first-time watcher, first-time anything, you can go to neveragainstudio.com. That has all of your needs for apparel, sponsoring, anything that you want to do with a small business. We help out as well. I work apparel for Axelrad. I never promote that, but if you need t-shirts made, I can get that done. If you want to sponsor the show, you're a business, you want to grow your numbers, I can help you out with branding, commercials, anything you see that I'm doing, I can offer as a service for you. The other thing that we have going on is we teamed up with Keystone Munitions, and I have nazoammo.com. If you need 9mm or anything you need, hit me up. I know we're getting in 556 223 40, probably 45, and Jeremy will be doing the podcast. I think I've been saying he's going to be, it's like the Matt Damon thing on The Late Show. I've been saying he's going to come on for like a year. I promise we are going to line it up. We are both super busy, but that's Keystone Munitions, and that's nazoammo.com, neveragainstudio.com. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend. This was a pleasure.
My pleasure.